Welcome to the WeHackPurple podcast, where each week we visit and talk with a different person from the information security industry to talk with them and learn about what it's like to do their jobs. There are so many interesting and cool jobs within our field of cyber. I'm Tanya, Janca, your host, and with me this week is going to be Jarrod Overson. As per the past several months, our sponsor this week is ThreadFix, powered by Denim Group, and we are WeHackPurple, the academy, the community, the podcast, the online shop for cute swag, and so much more. But you don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about battling bots with Jarrod. So let's bring him on. Hi, Jarrod.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Just to tell our guests, I met him at AppSec California in 2020, right at the end before they told us we're never allowed going anywhere fun again. And his talk was super amazing, awesome. I've always been fascinated by bots and also just trying to battle automation that is essentially evil. And so he had this really creative, interesting talk where he talked about years of strategy. And I was like, I need your email address. You might be awesome. And it worked out. He didn't think I was too creepy, so here he is. So, could you tell
No, definitely not. Always, actually, I really appreciated how you came up to me because normally it's me just be like, hey, I really like everything you do. Can I please talk to you? So it was great to have you come to me. It was very much appreciated.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe introduce yourself a bit?
Oh, yes, certainly. I'm Jarrod. For the past 7 years, up until 2 months ago, Director of Engineering at Shape Security, which is a company dedicated to stopping fraud in the general broad terms, but more specifically, protecting websites and applications against credential stuffing. Actually, that company, the founder was the person who coined the term credential stuffing. So that was a part of my life for the past 7 years. And 2 months ago, took a step back and figured out what I wanted to do. And I'm at the early stages of developing a product on my own.
That is super cool. It's scary, but also ridiculously exciting to step out on your own. Would you say?
Yes, absolutely. It's hard to find time to relax because when you're in charge of all the things, then it feels like every single second of the day needs to be productive, which means that even if I'm not programming, I might be cleaning the corner of a room that doesn't need to be cleaned just because I have to be doing something.
I know how you feel a lot. WeHackPurple hit our 1 year anniversary yesterday. And so I definitely, I feel you so much, Jarrod.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So can you describe, so first of all, when we invited you on, you were the battler of bots, and now you're starting your own thing. And I was wondering if it would be cool if we kind of talked about both, because starting a new thing's pretty exciting, but I don't expect you to reveal secrets. But then also your previous job and what that was like. Would that be cool if we talked about both?
Oh, absolutely. The Shape Security is a massive part of my career now at this point, and has been an insane number of stories that I could talk about. I wish that I kept notes because there's just so much that I learned at that company.
Yeah, you could probably write a novel if you, after, what was it, 7 or 8 years? 8 years?
7 years, which is the longest I've ever worked anywhere.
It's longer than I've ever worked anywhere. It's longer than I've lived anywhere except for with my parents, and even only by a bit. So, can you tell us could you describe your job, like both jobs?
Oh yeah, sure. So director at a company, you're kind of in that like weird like middle management layer where you have enough power to affect a swath of the company, but not enough power to really change a whole lot, which is actually a pretty good spot. You can affect a lot of people's lives, but you don't have the weight of big problems put on your shoulders. So if you're ever looking to target someplace within a company and stay there for decades, director is a good spot for you. But I found that the most valuable things that I was doing on a day-to-day basis was just setting expectations and translating concepts from team to team. So being a technical director, translating technical, either deep technical concepts or security concepts to executives or product teams, or whoever needed to know, and also making sure that expectations were set appropriately so that people didn't have unrealistic expectations about the outcome, either for timing or capability, because the biggest way to ruin everyone's day is to have somebody hounding you for something that could never have happened in the first place.
Yeah. Would you be able to give us an example maybe of like an expectation that you set because you kind of knew that they might be thinking something else, or?
Yeah, sure. In software, it's common to take a developer's word on how long it will take for something to get done, and then multiply that by any arbitrary number to have a very, very padded timeline that gives you enough room where that probably will get done. And I don't mean setting expectations like that, but it's discussing the problems that might arise, being honest about their likelihood, translating when that developer does say 2 weeks or 4 weeks, what in their head they're thinking will be done in that time, and then also explaining what things still need to happen before that executive or whoever actually sees the outcome. Because when somebody wants to know when something's going to get done, what they are really asking is, when will it be done, tested, deployed, and in front of a customer or a user and making them happy? And a developer's not thinking like that. Product might be close to thinking that, but it's a whole bunch of the company that you need to add together and make sure you're messaging appropriately so that people have an understanding of what's going on. And of course, when things are going to be bad, being very, very clear that things are not going to feel great, so that people aren't blindsided by things going wrong.
Oh, wow. That sounds hard. Does that mean that perhaps, I guess you're the bringer of bad news sometimes?
I mean, you can see it like that, but it's also an opportunity for when there is bad news to be the person who gets to message it in the most optimistic way possible.
I like it. I like it. So, do you want to also tell us kind of what it's like to start your own thing, especially because you're right at the very beginning, like how you decided to make that decision and kind of what it's like right now?
Oh, it is a constant roller coaster of excitement and depression. It's amazing. You are absolutely on the right track. Everything is going fantastic, and then, am I doing this? Is this really what I should be doing? Am I the one who's going to be able to do this? It's a lot of up and down, and when I've been in software for 20 plus years, and it's hard when you can be the person who can make and tweak all these things, because then you just feel like whenever something's not right, or whenever there's something that you could do, I feel like I have to do it, and then I feel like I'm doing too much when I don't need to be the person doing it all.
Can you teach me that lesson? Because I have that problem. It's been a year and I'm still like, oh, I'll just do this and they're like, Tanya, please stop doing that because there's only
Oh,
one of you and you're the only person that can go do this or this or this that you have not done yet.
no, I cannot teach you anything yet. When I figure it out, I'll let you know.
If you could teach that lesson, I think you might become a very, very rich person. So, what is a day like in the life of a director at a company, like especially a technical director? Like, do you sit in meetings all day?
Oh yes, there's definitely so over 7 years being in the shape security and in that position, from I think when I started there were about 40 some odd people. When I left, there were several hundred, I'm not sure, and then we were eventually acquired by F5, which is a much larger company.
Oh, yeah.
So that arc meant that there's a whole bunch of different things that I was doing at different times. Um, in general, you could probably distill it down into like three types of things that you'd have to do on a daily basis, and one of them is to keep abreast of long-term things that might come up. So what discussions are happening around the company, what issues might be recurring, what does the industry look like, where are hotspots, where are promising technologies, whatever you can do to keep your 3 to 6 month plan as up to date as possible so that you aren't surprised when something throws your plan up in the air and it comes crashing down, because it always does. And then on a smaller chunks, like at the weekly level, it's being aware of all the progress that is in your sphere, and then making sure that you're connecting people and teams that need to be connected, so that they don't stay down a road that they shouldn't be for too long. And then daily, it's agendas, meetings, preparing for one-on-ones, remembering people's dogs' names and how everyone's doing.
Yeah. That's actually surprisingly important if you want to connect with people, those little
Yeah,
details.
absolutely.
So, how has your day to day changed now that you're starting your own thing?
Well, I mean, the pandemic has changed all day to days in just crazy ways. I mean, right now uh, I've got two kids still remote learning at home, and my wife is at home with me, and I have
Wow.
one young 4 year old who we are having daycare. So it's a lot of juggling school up until about 12 to 1 o'clock, and then programming as much as I can in a 3 to 4 hour chunk before it's dinner time and then bedtime. And then maybe after that, get a little bit more work in. Or if I'm feeling really spunky, maybe relax a little.
Oh my gosh, that sounds it sounds like a lot to try to do at the same time. It's
It is, yes.
We are at the part of this show where I'm supposed to do a small amount of marketing. So I would like to invite everyone to join the WeHackPurple newsletter, which you can do by going to newsletter.wehackpurple.com, because we're giving away free mini courses. So yes, previously we gave away an incident response course, and now we're giving away a how to scale your team course. And it's free, and you can get it by joining our newsletter. The end. Marketing complete. Okay, so I have more questions, obviously. So, what type of personality trait do you think that it takes, or personality traits, or aptitudes maybe, to become a director and like it and be good at it?
Ooh, wow, those are two very important things. I mean, people would certainly throw the word leadership out here at some point with a question like that, but I have a hard time really. It seems like such a weasel trait. Like, what is leadership? What makes a good leader? It's different depending on the situation and the person and the people you're leading. I think that what I really like to see in people who either are above me or peers or anyone is the willingness to fail and to admit your failure and learn from it and use it as an example with others and not shy away from it, not feel bad about it. And then as a director, any sort of leader in a company is to admit every single day that everything you do is setting an example for everyone around you. So if you want people to feel comfortable failing, you have to fail and own it up in front of everyone. And maybe sometimes you have to ask the questions that make you look dumb to let everyone else know that asking dumb questions is okay. Just be okay being a test bed for what you want to see in other people.
Oh my gosh, I wish everyone did that or thought that or lived that. No, seriously. Have you ever been in a room with someone where they're like not admitting and like blaming everyone else but themselves and 10,000 excuses when it's like, no, like you made a mistake. If you could just own it, this meeting could be 5 minutes instead of like 2 hours.
Oh, yeah,
Isn't it?
absolutely.
It's painful, right?
Yeah, it's really sad when you get into a situation like that as a company, especially when it's with somebody who can't be who is high enough where it's difficult to really point it out. Yeah, it's tough.
I remember when I was working at Elections Canada and the minister, like the big person in charge of everything, said, I just want you to turn off my web filtering. I'm really upset with like having all these sites blocked and like I'm trying to read the news because I need to know if everything's going well. And so I wrote him back and said, okay, so I have to protect you. This is my job. However, here are some options for you. So if you send an email to me, I promise within 1 hour I'll have whatever it is approved. And this and this and that. And I'm like, and here's the risk. And I'm really sorry, but I can't comply with your thing. And I was like, I hope I don't get fired. And then, a few days later, he came to our floor. We're like, oh my God, the minister's here. And then he came up to me and he's like, you're Tanya. You said no. And I was like, I did, sir. And he's like, I'm so impressed that you said no so politely. You made me almost want to say thank you. And you offered me some solutions. And he's like, of course you can't say yes. If you'd said yes, I'd be like, who is she? We got to get rid of her. He's like, you can't say yes to that. I was just like frustrated. But he's like, you're doing great. Don't worry. And I was just like, right? But like, how do you say no to the really big person at the top?
Yeah, that is a really, really great example, because being confident in doing the right thing is so easy to say, but when you're presented with a situation like that, it's hard to do. But that is definitely one aspect that makes a really, really good leader that you want to follow.
Would you say there's any sort of, I don't know what the word is, like aptitude, or because you were saying things like remembering the name of someone's dog or remembering all those little details. I feel like social skills seem really important if you're going to succeed at such a role. Is that true?
Absolutely. It's not a secret in security and engineering that what people often deem as soft skills are in short supply, when those are the primary skills people should be working towards. And then, I mean, if you got great programming skills after that, that's great. But no one wants to work with a jerk. Being a person that people like to be around is very, very nice. And the little things like the remembering a person's dog, remembering their birthday, remembering what video games they play, or remembering whether or not they were having a trouble with their son 2 months ago, that stuff, just the little bits here and there that you can bring up show that you care. And when you're a director or middle manager at a company, it's so easy for people to walk in and assume that you're just going to be some faceless boring boss that goes and walks around and fires people and makes people's lives miserable. So whatever you can do to fight against that and to show that you are actually a person who cares about other people will go a long way.
I wish that everyone could go to the Jarrod School of Leadership Training because, or just like maybe like a third of all the bosses that I've previously had. Like I would say another third were pretty good and then another third were great, but there's like one third that really needs to go through your training school.
Yeah, that was my biggest source of education and training is to just think about all the bosses that I hated in my career and just don't do anything that they did.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. Okay, so I have more questions, of course. Could someone take training or try to get specific work experience so that they could one day become a director? Because I've known people, like I have a friend right now and he works in AppSec, but he wants to become the director of AppSec somewhere. And he's like, how do I do it? And I was like, I don't know. Ask someone that's a director of something. I'm a CEO of a startup. I know how to do that.
Yeah, that's tough. And with titles like that, every company treats titles so differently. You could be senior at one company and they wouldn't hire you as a junior at another company. And director is, again, one of those like wishy-washy titles that can mean so many different things at every company. Larger companies have a better a route to positions. So it's more clear what you need to do to get into that. At Shape Security, especially as a small 40, 50 person startup, there was none of that. The position I was in and what I tell other people how to get into positions is to just act like you're already in the position. And then when people come around to either needing to reorganize or to figure out who's ready for promotion or who's ready for the next thing, it's going to be you because you already look like you're in that position. And I know it doesn't sound exciting. Like you want to have just done such a great job that somebody comes over and says, you are ready to be a director. But it doesn't work like that. You put in the hours for months or years with no extra pay, no extra appreciation. And then at the end of that time, somebody looks at you and says, oh, you're not a director yet? You're a director now. Yeah.
The magic director wand, the promotion wand.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I like that though. I like the idea of just showing up every day clearly prepared and trying your best to do that role that you want to have. I remember my mom saying, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And if, for instance, like if you want to be in management one day, I used to, just wear like basically like grunge clothes to work. I'd wear, like old hoodies and ripped jeans and stuff. And she's like, are you dressing for the job you want? I'm like, yeah, I'm a programmer. we can roll in jammy bottoms. We're allowed. But then eventually when I wanted to go into management and leadership, I started wearing blouses and pants that were sort of dress-ish and kind of like trying to up the ante. And I remember my boss saying, like, could you go buy jeans? You make everyone uncomfortable. I'm like, why? He's like, because you look so much better than the rest of us slobs. I was just like, that sounds like your problem.
Yeah. I mean, it is also important to point out that even if you do act like you are in a certain position, you might still not get the job. And that's something that you just have to be ready for in life.
Yeah, and sometimes maybe look elsewhere to a place where where you will be recognized. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is an important and unfortunate reality of how we work. Is that if you're not getting what you want at the company you're at, you will almost definitely get more at another company, and you'll be valued more at the start. And it's
weird,
doing
right?
whatever you can. Yeah, doing whatever you can to increase your chances of being lucky. And
sorry, what what type of experience do you think someone would need to try to become a director of security? Like, is there a really obvious path to it, or is it like you could do this, you could do that, and then
Um, that's I have generally stayed at smaller companies, so I work more. I enjoy my time more at smaller companies where you can affect more and work more closely with people. And getting into a smaller company, no matter what the position, makes it more likely that you will have a more senior position as that company grows. So if rapid advancement is something that you desire, then you're going to have more opportunities at a small company that grows quickly than a large company, just because as companies grow, the positions splinter and teams splinter in a whole bunch of different ways, and every one of those splinters is a new position opening. And you can get a lot more education a lot more quickly. And to me, they're just a lot more fun. Bigger companies, I find to be sluggish and difficult to influence. They're great if you want stability and you don't mind things taking an outrageous time compared to other companies. But if you want to feel like you're actually making an impact and just I don't know the startup thing. It's like it's fun. It is fun. Like when people talk about the fun at startups, it's fun making something new. It's fun starting projects from zero and watching them grow. It's fun seeing the people around you grow and learn with you. It's a fun environment, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to gain a lot of different types of experience very, very rapidly at small companies.
yeah, and also you mentioned like being able to influence things, like genuine influence things, not going to a giant committee meeting and you saying, "Hey, what if we tried this new thing?" and everyone saying, "Oh, we've always done it this way, so we're thinking we'll just kind of keep doing it this way." Why aren't our numbers growing? We have no
Mm.
idea. Why don't we have any new customers? Someone saying in the comments, "You learn fast at startups." Oh,
Yeah.
and the comment says, "I have become a Jedi." I love it. I
Yes.
love it.
Well,
I've
that's
become
a
a
good
Jedi.
startup. Yeah.
Yeah. I I have more questions, but first I wanted to bring up a thing that we were briefly talking about before, which is the ladies' hoodie. So I was telling Jarrod before the show, I was like, yeah, we now have ladies' hoodies. Did you know that ladies' hoodies were a thing? So mine has We Hack Purple on it, but so every time if you're a woman, you go to a conference or you go to some sort of thing and they're like, oh, you can buy a hoodie. It's always unisex, which means man, just to be clear. But it turns out women want to wear clothes too. And some of us want to wear hoodies. And so we got some Ultra Femme hoodies where it goes in a bit at the waist, goes out a bit at the hips. Every single hoodie that I own, except the ones I just got from WeHackPurple, I kid you not, like billow out at the waist so it looks like, I don't know, I'm carrying a pillow, and then super tight on the hips and awkward and uncomfortable when I sit down. And so yeah, we have lots of bright colors and they're super cute and fun, and they're not all pink. Some are purple, blue, green, etc. And so if my amazing person who is running the tech for this show wanted to share the link for shop.wehackpurple.com, people can go check it out. But I need to do one more thing, Jarrod. So I wasn't actually supposed to promote the hoodie. I'm just wearing it because it's really cute. I was supposed to talk about our sponsor, which is ThreadFix, powered by Denim Group. And ThreadFix is the most stupendous vulnerability management system this side of the galaxy. Yes. Okay. I swear I'm done. I'm done marketing. Okay, I have more questions, Jarrod.
I'm ready for you.
Thank you. So I like a lot of the things you've been saying, but it feels like a lot of stuff is left to chance. So a lot of people that listen to this podcast, it's partially out of curiosity. So like quite frankly, I just like knowing the ins and outs of different jobs, even if it's so that I can understand where that person's coming from when I end up working with that person later, or if it's like, oh, I want to live vicariously through, like last week we had this guy on named Davin Jackson. He was awesome, and he was telling us about doing like physical pen tests, and I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. I would be too much of a scaredy cat to ever do that, but that's super cool. But people, a lot of the people that are listening, it's because they one day want to try to get that job. Does that make sense? So people will be like, director of security. I'm interested in that. I'm going to listen to Jarrod's episode. Is there like a learning path that they could intentionally try to do? Like for a security architect, for instance, like there's certain experiences you can try to get or courses or books you could try to read to like try to be like, look, I'm obviously super qualified for this. Check me out over here. Is for a security architect, or sorry, for like a director of security, like how do we try to get to that point?
I'm sure there are trainings you can go out there and pay for, but in general, I'd recommend staying at the bleeding edge of technology and security, because if you see every single thing that is coming in and you absorb it all, you understand it before everyone else, then you are basically seeing into the future. And I mean, it might sound silly, but it is literally that you're seeing stuff that other people are ignoring months, maybe even years before they think to deal with it. And sure, there might be 60, 80, 90% of that stuff that never becomes relevant. But for that 10% that ends up blowing the world up, either some technology that becomes incredibly powerful or popular like Docker or Kubernetes, or some vulnerability that ends up just exploding in the news, you'll be the expert before anybody else, and you will undoubtedly raise your profile wherever you are just by being knowledgeable about it. So just stay in news when interesting things pop up, dive into them. If it's technology, get into it, build it, clone the repositories, understand how it's used. If it's security, dabble in the exploits. Make sure you are actually trying to understand how this stuff works. Make sure that you are analyzing I mean, depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, I'm in the bot world, so like when you're dealing with the latest way to exploit websites or to make sure that you're buying sneakers, make sure you're actually playing with those tools and those bots, so you know how they work and you know how to talk about them. It's very underrated being somebody who just knows all that stuff at the bleeding edge. But that'll absolutely give you so many more opportunities.
I feel like you're saying be extremely competent. Could that be?
Yeah, absolutely. Be extremely competent. I mean, that will certainly be that'll certainly get you very far in life. That
But be
certainly
ahead of the
could go
curve
along. Yeah,
as well?
have you ever seen the I forget what it's called, the I don't know, curve of adoption or something along those lines. You have like the
Early
innovators,
adopters.
early adopters, early majority, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's the bulk of the middle, where the people who are just doing their normal jobs, deal with most problems. And if you are at the outer edge, seeing everything before them, then you will know more and you'll be ahead of everyone. So you could, I guess I see competent as just the
The middle?
how adept you are at performing tasks. You might be equally adept, but if you just know more about what's coming down 2 to 3 years down the line, then you just have that much more experience than everyone else. And it's easy to get, but you have to try for it, because there are lots of things that you might dabble in that are not going to play out.
I like it. I really like it.
Mhm.
I have more questions. I know. So, so this is, so I don't know if you've watched previous episodes, but it's time for the cheese question. So previously, like on the first episode, so I think people want to know when they're deciding which career that they're going to choose, especially if they're switching from one career to another career, they want to know how well it pays. But I don't want to ask my guests how much money do you make. So instead, I was talking about on the very first episode, well, I knew that I had made it as a software developer. When I went to the grocery store and I was deciding between two types of cheese, and I was like, oh, this one looks really awesome, but this one also looks really awesome. And then I realized I make so much money, I can just buy both cheese and it doesn't even matter because I make so much money now that I don't have to worry about the extra $5 on my grocery bill. Like it just doesn't matter. Because previously I'd always have to like think about it like if I get this, I can't get that, right? And I was like, I can get whatever cheese I want. I could even, if I felt really into it, I could get 3 cheeses, right? But and it just blew my mind in that moment that I was like, I don't have to be super frugal with the food I buy because I've made it as a software developer. And that was like a moment for me realizing I was being paid really well. And so would you say that you could, like being a director of security, you can buy as much cheese as you want, or you're like, I am a vegan and not by choice, or like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think it's certainly a job that will pay you well. I think technology in general, if you should be getting paid well, if you're in software or if you're in security, any level, QA, engineering, DevOps, IT, you should be getting paid well. That's
But being a
without a doubt.
director might be even better.
It's you can make equivalent salaries in engineering tracks. Director is not necessarily the next step if you want more money. That's more of a like if you consider in the engineering world, there's strict software where you become just an expert in building perfect implementations of brilliant algorithms. There's architecture where you're waving your wand and crafting out magical deployments across the globe. And then there's the leadership side, which is a lot more people and a lot less touching of keyboards. And all three can net you a great bit of money, but no one is more lucrative or better than the other.
This is awesome to know because I feel like, especially if someone is switching from a different career, like let's say someone's a nurse or a school teacher, and they're switching into tech, knowing that as an individual contributor, if you are exceptional, that you could do just as well as a director, I think is really important information because not everyone knows that.
No, and that's something I try to help people breaking in understand is that if you're trying to be a programmer, one, make sure what you're doing it for. If it's because you really like programming, then be somebody who lives and breathes programming and can talk that way. And then if it's somebody who wants a career that pays well and is stable, that's also great. But you don't necessarily need to be a programmer to get into a good, high-paying technical job. This project management, leadership, quality assurance, there, DevOps, security, IT. There's loads of technical careers that pay very well that have less to do with programming. But still benefit from having that programming and technical background. So you can jump into those and be better because you have that passion or training already doing the bit of programming that you've already done.
There are a ton of people that I have worked with throughout my career, especially in security roles, where they'll tell me, yeah, I did computer science, and then I was like, I just don't want to code all day, but I love technology. And I'm like, yeah, we need all the jobs getting done, not just the coding jobs.
Yeah, I love programming, but also like woodworking and Legos, and at the end of the day, I like solving problems and making things. And those are skills that can be applied to so many different parts of companies. So yeah, software is hot. Definitely learn how to program because it won't fail you. But it's like plumbing or electric. Being an electrician is just it's something that will help you do lots of things in your life. You'll be able to fix stuff that comes up and pops up, or build new stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not necessarily something that you have to focus in to get a job.
Would you say there's lots of opportunities in your field? Like in to
Oh
become
yeah.
a director in security?
I think in technology in general, security is not going away. Like it's a really sad, horrible spot right now. There are so many opportunities, and if they aren't readily available or showing up on your job listing right now, they are definitely going to show up in the next year, 2 or 5, because the state of security is not stellar.
So if someone's listening, maybe we want to encourage them to join our industry because we probably super duper need their help.
Oh, please. Oh, yes. And oh, it's tell your friends, tell anybody. There's a big problem with security. Like we've done a very, very poor job as an industry properly conveying and messaging to the general public what security problems are actually out there. And
Yeah.
there's just so much education and training that needs to exist. And when it doesn't, those amount to actual real security problems at companies that people need to be hired for to be fixed.
Yes, like credential stuffing,
Yeah,
right?
yes, like credential stuffing.
Would
It's
you briefly explain what that is and your
Oh, of course, so much
role?
practice. Yeah, credential stuffing is the replay of previously breached credentials from one site onto any other site to see who has reused their passwords. It's basically how the majority of accounts get popped across any service. Like when we were all, or at least when I was growing up, I was told that the password threat is having too simple of a password that somebody can just brute force it by iterating through all the combinations. And I now realize that you can have the most ridiculous password that ever existed, but if you're using it across every service, that is what's going to mess you up more than anything else, because the random Lady Gaga forum over here that's running the same bulletin board software that it has been for the past 10 years gets cracked, and using the same password for Spotify, your bank, email, whatever, then Spotify, your bank, email, those are going to get popped too. Not because anyone cares about you, this person who's reusing password. It's just that the password works. So people will pop all those accounts and exploit them for whatever value they can.
Would you say that everyone whose password is solar wins 123 should probably change it?
Oh boy, yeah. Oh, poor intern.
I know, getting blamed. For those who don't know, like the Solar Winds breach, there was a bit of trying to blame an intern for having a poor password, but that's if your intern is the one that makes all the powerful security decisions, there's like a lot of other problems going on.
Yeah.
But I remember someone saying once, and me realizing it was true, the most popular password in the world, due to places that still do the silliness of password rotation, is right now winter 2021 and soon to be spring 2021, assuming an English
Yeah.
speaking platform. What do you Okay, so I'm just gonna get off topic for like 1 second. Of course, like my tech person's like, Tanya, oh no. Um, what do you think about password rotation rules? Like the forcing of your users to change their passwords every like 90 days, let's say.
Uh, You shouldn't, certainly. You should not force users to rotate passwords. You should only force a password reset if you have a reason to believe that a password is compromised one way or the other. Either you've had a breach, or you're checking that password, or a representation of that password against known breached sets of data, or you're testing that password against the world's top million passwords or something like that, then you shouldn't reset a password. And the examples you gave are exactly what happens when people need to reset their passwords every 90 days. They have one base password, and then they rotate through something memorable. In that case, it was the season and the date. Now, for the credential stuffing example, you will technically have different passwords, but because those patterns are so common and so predictable, attackers will take the previously breached passwords, and for those passwords that match that pattern, they will update that to whatever is appropriate for this time. So you're not gaining the security you're expecting by forcing that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Look at Jarrod completely, totally supporting my claims in my book. Yep, that's right. Someone tweeted out a quote from my book: "End user cruelty, stop password rotations." And then a whole bunch of Twitter people, so you can expect that obviously they've really thought out their comments before they make them publicly. And of course, they actually have real life experience and or training or knowledge in the area before they make wild claims responding to a tweet. And so they're very intelligent and not at all ignorant. And yeah, and there was a lot of people explaining like, no, we should rotate them more. And I was like, can you please tell me what you base this upon? And then, eventually I blocked them. But I agree with you so much.
And if it helps at all, at Shape Security, a security company with very, very bright security people running it, I didn't have my password changed for the entire 7 years I worked there. It met the complexity requirements. It was never found on any breach, and I used that for 7 years, and it was a unique password.
Yeah, and it was unique. You used it only for the one thing.
Yeah.
Listen to Jarrod. Do what Jarrod does. It's right. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I'm just like a little ranty there, and I was like, yes, I have
no, please,
the expert about this topic. It's so good. Okay, so now the difficult questions, Jarrod. What did you like best about your job being a security? And then, while you're thinking about that, the opposite difficult question: what did you like the least about being a security director? Because this is tough.
What I liked the most was having the ability to change enough of the company and direction that I could really influence it towards the direction that I thought it should go. So we were fighting credential stuffing early days. Like, people didn't even know, nobody knew what the term credential stuffing meant. We had to continually describe it over and over again, but that also meant that we didn't know how to really, there wasn't a fix for it. It wasn't like a vulnerability that you patch. People were getting through the front doors that you have to leave open. So figuring out how to solve that was the Shape's primary problem for the first several years. And at one point, I had my vision that I thought we could move towards, and because I was in that position, I was able to realize that, and that was that'll probably be one of the most satisfying stories that I'll ever look back on. Is being at a company that just didn't know how to solve the problem, and then being able to carve out my chunk of engineering and to build a solution that I thought was going to be durable, and to to be able to start that, complete it, roll it out, and change the course of technology at the company for the entire then lifetime of the company. It was fantastic, and you can't do that as a individual contributor because there's just too much momentum. So it was really great to be able to have that opportunity.
Oh, that's awesome. And now the worst.
The worst part about being in any sort of management position is just being the boss. No one really likes the boss. No matter how fun a room is, it would always be more fun if the boss left, and that's sad.
Yeah, it's hard too, right? And also you have to sometimes give feedback that's not ideal, but if you don't give the feedback, the person's not going to get better.
Yeah, you can, no matter how fun you are, no matter how good a friend you might have been or still be, there are always situations where feedback has to be given, and it goes both ways. But when you are in a position of power, there's always in the back of people's minds, what might happen if I say this? It's the same with the story about the minister. There's always that in the back of people's minds, and it's the filter and the cloud that makes it hard to know exactly what people feel, and it also just makes it so that people are a little bit more guarded.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas of how to make it so people feel that they can approach you, like in a leadership role, like anything that you could do to help encourage that? Because like we need feedback too, right?
Well, yeah, I just try and look like a normal person as much as possible. And just going back to what I said earlier, I mean, be the example that you want others to be. It's just like you also have to just be human, be vulnerable, show your mistakes, talk about yourself, talk about what's going on, just be a normal human. And then on the other side, collaborate on decisions. Don't walk in with a giant mallet and start forcing everyone to see it your way.
Yes. I would like to just like agree with him a lot on that, just in case anyone was wondering my feelings. Yeah, the mallet doesn't work well. And also, why hire a whole bunch of really smart people if you're just going to tell everyone you know better than them? Yeah.
That is one of the great things about being a director, is that you succeed when you have a bunch of awesome people around you, and all you do every day is just try to make them more awesome. And then you just have this giant bubble of awesomeness, and everyone looks at you. It's like, how'd you get everyone so awesome? It's like, it's all me. It's all me. So, just kidding. It's everyone else, of course.
Okay, I have two last questions. Okay, so first one, which is probably more important than the second one, but if you could give advice to someone, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, I think one day I can become a director. What advice would you give them so that they could try to get there? Or I feel like you've given a lot of advice of when they get there, how to like not abuse that position and like be a decent human being, which is like extremely important. I want everyone to do that, but like, what advice to try to get there?
As shallow as it might seem, I would definitely recommend trying to work for companies that have recognizable names. Because if you do amazing things at a company no one's ever heard of, then you need to go out of your way and try extra hard to sell all that and market all that and to get people to see all your awesomeness. Whereas if you have a resume where you've worked at Google, Netflix, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, just any name that people have heard before, then you automatically are assumed to have been at least as competent as you need to be to have been there. And in the hiring person's head or the whoever you're dealing with, they probably have an image of what a person who works at those companies is like, or they might have known somebody who's been good. And you then get lumped into that bubble as opposed to no name company, regardless of whether or not you were so much more awesome there. And it's shallow, but it works.
Awesome. No, seriously. When I worked at Microsoft, just every single person since then, they're like, you used to work at Microsoft. I'm like, I've been working in tech like 23, 24 years now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, and they're just like, but Microsoft. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last question. If people want to know more about you, if they want to follow your work, how can they do that? So underneath you on the screen, we have your Twitter handle. So that's JS Overson. So that's Overson. If you want to find him on Twitter. But is there more you'd like to share?
I have a website, jarrodoverson.com. It has not seen much in the past little bit, but I am working on whole lots of new things. So I will be writing a lot more. I have done the YouTube thing. That has been dark for a little while as well as I've transitioned and shifted. But I'm working on lots of new, very exciting to at least me things that have a lot to do with security and application development. So Twitter is a good way to follow me because I will probably post all that there. But if you're more of the reader, then jarrodoverson.com. And if you're more of the watcher, then youtube.com, search for Jarrod Overson.
Okay, I'm going to spell out your name because we get way more listeners than viewers. And so to go to his website, it's Jarrod, Jarrod, Overson, Overson.com. I know that you're like, oh, it's obvious how to spell my name, but it's not for everyone. Someone will definitely spell Jarrod wrong. And we don't want that because they'll find some other Jarrod Overson that will not have all of the amazing knowledge that we just talked about and way more. I'm so excited to see what you're doing next. I'm just going to keep following you on Twitter. And that is the way I'm just going to have to wait like everyone else and attempt to be patient. Thank you so much for being on our show, Jarrod. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you for reaching out.
I look really forward to hearing what you're doing and have a happy Thursday evening. Thank you for being on the WeHackPurple podcast.
Thank you.
Bye. Up next week on the WeHackPurple podcast, we have so much in store for you. Next week, we have Oshia Bowens, and he's going to talk about what it's like to be the CEO of a cybersecurity company. He's doing a lot of very interesting things that you probably want to hear about. The following week, we're going to have Veronica Schmidt. She is, first of all, on the board of directors for WOSEC International, and I'm an advisor on there, so I know this awesome lady. But she's also an assistant professor and security researcher who specializes in medical devices, which, if you remember way back to episode 6, we had Marie Moe on, and she's the person that hacked her own pacemaker while it was inside her heart. And so I'm really excited to have V on after the really interesting discussion with Mary Moe. After that, we're going to have, I know I'm going to say this wrong, even though I'm a huge fan, Oidel Odublel. And she is a data scientist, and she specializes in basically like all sorts of things data science, but she talks a lot about basically how we can use data science for good and how we can make sure that our data isn't biased. We have lots and lots and lots more awesome guests. I want to thank our sponsor again, Threadfix, so much for being our sponsor and being so supportive of WeHackPurple. And I just want to say one last time, thank you from me. I'm Tanya, Janca, your host, and I look forward to seeing you every Thursday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Have a great night. Bye.